in the mid lane. Rumble, definitely a ban that we see a lot more often. I'm just gonna call it out right now. The dog is unbanned, but you know what? Something that is much more pressing for both of these junglers here is that Lilia. We have seen how important it has been for some of the carry-oriented junglers, especially in the Nirvana group, and even the lower side of the group Ascend love to get their hands on this champion.
All right, the Galio ban, like you were saying, kind of interesting. I think with Gwen, Rumble, and Jace gone, there could be an argument to wanting to go for Sion later in the draft, since those would be champions that typically, I think this actually might be pretty good. You know, there's no Sion for the rest of the series. He doesn't have to deal with the Gwen or the Rumble very early on. Here for LGD, though, I think you have a reasonable amount of front line. I think RNG going to be looking for the Yone, which would separate him from his pair with the Sejuani. And some pretty decent front line already for these two teams.
I mean, there's your front line right there. Sion, and then another melee champion for Tangyuan being able to lock in this Yone. Now, LGD could match fire with fire and get a pretty able melee split pusher for themselves like the Mbessa. At least you get a free scaling phase against something like the Sion, unless Xiaoxu is one of those legendary Sion players that actually gets a chance to solo kill you early on. Shout out to Zamudo over on NACL, who has been clapping cheeks over there with the Sion. But going into second round of bans right now, based on the 3-man cores from both of these squads, what are RNG and LGD wanting to get out of the bot lanes to flesh out this composition?
Well, it's going to be a big focus on AD carries. I think coming into the series, we talked about JiaQi on the Kai'Sa having really huge performances against AL in the placement stages, and getting rid of pocket picks here for Shaoye. We look at these AD carries, I think that the next most likely here that JiaQi might be able to take is something like an Aphelios, but when there is an Ezreal, when there's an Azir plus a Mbessa, my eyes do fall towards that Ezreal, especially kind of gaining in priority. You're the team that has the Sion, and you're kind of saying, hey, if LGD you are going to take it, then who's really going to be killing Xiaoxu in these fights? And RNG are showing the makings of a dive composition. I think always when you have a Yone, those are things you have to kind of think about. So anything that's going to be able to pressure, even things like Xayah start to really come into question here for RNG.
Yeah, and it already makes sense that they took away not only the signature Kai'Sa just because JiaQi had that insane 1v9 moment against anyone's legend, but of course, it just fits the profile of the composition so well. Nico also being taken away from Niket, despite whatever you have said, you know, regarding the pre-show about Niket's Nico, it still fits the style that they would like to go for. Now, LGD gonna take their choice of Alistar as support for YCX, another support that would help enable the dive. And for the side of RNG, eyeing what marksmen are available, as you already called out, Draven and Kalista banned off the table. Ezreal, the hover right now, the one that you call for specifically for JiaQi.
The Nico ban is interesting because it basically would have enforced potentially like an NMF response.
No way.
We're not getting baited by hovers. Not getting baited by hovers. RNG now, they get to pick their support on 5. This can be a Braum angle. I think Rakan also works incredibly well when you have not only the Lilia, but also the Yone to give you backline access. Still a pretty flexible lane, but instead going for the Poppy. Something that I just completely forgot about, a champion that has been very, very dominant so far, and very good into what LGD have shown. So LGD giving their last pick over to Shaoye. Does he want to go for more skirmishing power early with something like a Corki or a Caitlyn? Or decide to say, like, we're going to go scaling, we're going to try to play this game to like a 35, 40 minute mark. And he's going to go ahead and pick himself up the Sivir. So LGD, really strong team fighting, but it's all about the going forward. How can we find fights? How can we pressure onto the opponents? While RNG, they can hold their ground and are going to be looking to fight them.
And the crazy thing about locking in something like a Sivir against all the dive into RNG, you would think that you want to pick an AD carry that has insanely long range, that has a lot of safety, that's not even involved with the main pocket that LGD is going for. But instead, they doubled down by saying, you know what? My AD carry is so short range that he should always be around my Azir, my Xin Zhao, my Mbessa, no matter what, because I'm popping the on the hunt button and making sure that everybody's going in at the same time. And with the powerful amount of wave clear that you get from Azir and Sivir, even if the early game doesn't go your way, this is like the Jin Air Green Wing staple from the old LCK days, where you just want to go 50 plus minutes, install the game out, get the 6 items, and pray that your team fighting is better than the other side at that point.
Thankfully, we have Elder Drake this time. And real Barons.
True.
So we don't have to worry about... I hope we're waiting... It's Group Nirvana. To be fair, Mark, anything can happen here in Group Nirvana. Anything
just
is possible.
Like the
Everything
slogan,
is legal.
Anything can happen, baby.
Yeah, it is truly magnificent what Group Nirvana has given us. We've got a lot of fun games. We've had a lot of Resident Sleeper games, but here for LGD, they're looking to continue their win streak right now. 3-0 or 2-0 so far here in the group, while RNG have only played a single series. So trying to kind of bounce back, find their footing here in Group Nirvana and prevent themselves from being eliminated. I think RNG in particular as an organization would hate to be one of the teams that is leaving for the rest of the year.
As you called it, every series, every game in Group Nirvana does count for a chance to keep your season alive. Let's take a look as both of these teams hit the rift.
Okay, the LGD Gios were not all there, but I think that that's fair. You know, a team that hasn't really found too much success historically for a couple of years. It's been a while since LGD has been a top-level name here in the LPL. So coming into this game, we are going to have pretty big expectations of the mid-jungles of these two teams. Nayo has been a honestly magnificent addition to this squad, again leading this team to a 2-0 already here in Group Nirvana, and really gonna have to see what form XQW and Tangyuan have been in for this series, just because they have been kind of streaky players individually.
Even though his time on Rare Adam last year wasn't necessarily the greatest, it's definitely been a nice start for LGD, and at least elevating the rest of the squad that we had such high hopes for, despite not making it to the playoffs in Split 1. There was just a lot of surprisingly impressive moments. I still think about their series against Top Esports, who eventually became our Split 1 champions and representatives at First Stand, and the fact that LGD early on, remember, this is still a roster that has rookies like XQW and YCX moving up from the LDL in their debut of the LPL. There's a lot to be hopeful for as they are continuing to getting more games under the belt, more experience. And right now, so far, even though not much action has occurred on the Rift, I think there will be plenty of things to look forward to as we head into the mid game once we get that first rotation of grubs.
So both junglers pathing down towards the bottom side. Right now, it's milkyway with a minor advantage, just being just that little bit quicker to be expected with a Lilia. And for the time being, I think that this RNG team is going to have a pretty tough time with bot lane, especially after some of the first backs and once Shaoye gets his first item, due to just the fact that it is much easier for LGD in the mid game to run into a side lane and look for something off of mid priority. I mean, Sivir is just going to clear the wave incredibly fast. So that'll be some things to look out for, and how RNG are able to be a little bit more creative, because it feels almost like they have to be the team that is able to get into position first or find unique flanks with milkyway and Tangyuan. Interesting, they're already going for the swap. This is really early in comparison. A lot of teams wait until the 440 mark or maybe a little bit later, but RNG are immediately opting for this, recognizing that playing into, I mean, you have a Scion, so it's really perfect for that, but also playing into the Sivir as Ezreal, you kind of have to take greedy trades or look for certain timers just to get around this matchup.
Yeah, because if you want to fight fire with fire in terms of getting the wave pushed back in, you're going to eat a lot of ricochet blades from Sivir. Just her ability to be able to push the wave so easily, especially early on, it does force that swap to come in. Tangyuan putting a little chip damage on Nayo's face, making sure that he knows that he means business and not try to just cruise through his lane like that ever again. And as LGD's bot lane does answer the swap on the top side, currently kind of frozen on the top side here. With milkyway making his way up towards the top side, I'm not sure if there's any reason to believe that RNG would try to set up a play there, since not strong CC for Niket to go for if he cannot find the wall bang angle, but milkyway, I mean, you saw it, right? He thought about maybe walking up and looking for some pressure, but realistically, the way the 3v2 plays out is very difficult to initiate.
If they had a little bit more chip damage, I think it's possible. Also, just for right now, it's a minor economic victory. Shaoye did end up buying a cull this time around, where JiaQi only was able to get the tier, so kind of equalizing that gold there. You get the teleports of the two mid laners as XQ, or just of XQW, as he's trying to he's trying to get at least a little bit of trade damage. Both the junglers have now reset, and I think this is fine for milkyway. He had a timer there, already finished his Faded Ashes, and he can continue to path towards bot lane. And actually has priority coming in here from Xiaoxu, so they can go for an early dragon. I think mostly just going to be looking to try contest the river here.
I like Tangyuan just being super... I don't know if you wanted to do that. Okay, Q3 at least bails him out. But I was going to say, before the questionable Soul Unbound happened, I was a little concerned. But Tangyuan, knowing that he still has a teleport, is able to take those kind of trades in and trade a lot of his HP, because in reality, he'll have a chance to back. XQW already has burned his teleport. He won't have the same pleasure. And so he's already forced to recall, whereas Tangyuan is still sitting on his TP.
I mean, he's just allowed to do this, right? So he'll have a pretty nice back, 50 CS plus, like, right, should be pretty fine. Seeing that RNG trying to enter the top side jungle here. Again, like we just said, with Tangyuan TPing, this should be their advantage.
A flash forward for Niket doesn't really get them anything here. Now Tangyuan off the TP, look for the Fate Seal, but doesn't find it. It did get the flash out of Nio, but now that's one major engage tool that is burned by RNG. No other level 6s by the other members of RNG, so it's really going to come down to if they can get some decent poke in. But unless milkyway hits level 6 off of a stolen crab or a stolen grub, I don't think this fight is really playable for the side of RNG, but they're going to look for it. Tangyuan is just going to get pushed in and doesn't get a chance to snap back on the Soul Unbound. You just really got to question the boldness from RNG there.
There was 2 summoners there missing. I mean, I like the idea of the engage from YCX getting around Poppy's W by flashing forward. They got the trade of Tangyuan's ultimate that probably should have been enough there for RNG to go back to the lanes, and now you're feeling a little bit bad because you've made your solo laner, you've made specifically Tangyuan and JiaQi, your carries, miss out on time to farm, and it'll only be 1 grub. They're not teleporting. Does RNG lose more for this?
milkyway forced to flash away. Xiaoxu is here just in case.
Oh my goodness. Group Nirvana, baby. Group Nirvana.
Welcome to Group Nirvana, the awesome show that is these teams fighting for their lives. And you know what? You know, a lot of skill shots are probably going to be missed, but at the end of the day, it's all entertainment, baby.
Okay, end of the day, it's going to be 2 grubs over to LGD. Not bad when they are the team that, we talk about side lanes, should be feeling pretty comfortable, Mbessa and Azir. So, oh, JiaQi is, I mean, he has no ultimate, sure. Yeah, I respect it. He knows, like, he has no ultimate. At the very least, maybe someone sitting around that brush could be scary, but JiaQi decides to call his bluff.
Yeah.
And kind of have to look at kind of where a lot of the gold is. Yes, Tangyuan ended up falling, but has a minor lead over his opponents. They're consistently just trying to make swaps, making sure that they're catching waves. The problem I think I kind of see here is that milkyway kind of got sucked into that fight on top side, and so missed out on a little bit of time to farm some of his camps. So, you know, a minor advantage going over to LGD, not just with the kill there.
Yeah, it definitely seemed like there was an angle for RNG to just be content with the 1 grub, considering their fight to reinitiate off of Tangyuan's Fate Sealed went awry and didn't get them the advantage that they were looking for. But then it just seems like RNG overstayed their welcome. Yeah, milkyway got out, burned his flash for it, I guess was willing to take the trade. There's still a dragon to take off the table here for either team. Niket and JiaQi doing a decent job of getting the wave shoved in and getting priority, but doesn't really look like it's a strong enough position to actually get that dragon for them. milkyway is just going to look for the back instead.
Yeah, same thing with Niket here, as Ezreal is going to be by himself. Maybe they're going to try to make a play in that river. You can kind of see some pinks going down there, trying to note where XQW is. They're going to try to clear some of his vision. And with Niket recalling so he can grab more wards, same thing with YCX on the opposite side. control of mid is going to be really important. So watching how our two mid laners interact and who is allowed to really fade into the bottom side river is going to tell us a lot as to who has priority and who's allowed to move in, because everyone really has their ultimates. It's just Milky Way still without his flash. Same thing for Nayo.
Oh, nice steadfast presence from Niket, but the forward engage from YCX finds a 3-man pulverize. Unfortunately for the rest of his squad, not really able to comfortably follow up on that. Meanwhile, JiaQi and Shaoye in a 1v1. Shaoye doesn't have any more mana, but he has a higher health bar, but JiaQi is at least willing to trade some mystic shots back into Xiaoye's face. But now below 300 HP, almost at 200. RNG's 80 carry, not in the greatest spot to look for a further fight. YCX helps his jungler get the first hit onto it, and is now awaiting for Niket to Hex Flash over the wall since they have the ward in the Tri-Bush. And as soon as Niket sees the Alistar walk up, realizes that's no longer an angle to play for.
As soon as Milky Way even ulted there, that's just the dragon gone. XQW does have ultimate, should be able to flash out.
Oh, what a clean sidestep by Milky Way. Able to evade the Emperor's Divide, and despite the flash, XQW still dies.
Okay, mid priority there, but that was the dragon going over to LGD. 50 seconds before this second grub spawn, and I do favor RNG in that instance. They should be very close to hitting level 6 on their support, so having the Poppy ultimate means that they'll have a big timer. No flash now on XQW, in my mind, should really disincentivize LGD from looking for this fight, and you get a replay of this. I mean, this is really tough. This is just XQW trying to clear the wave. Good job from Tangyuan to kind of keep him occupied. I'm going to assume that this Azir just didn't have the shuffle, because if he did, I feel like he should be looking to try to sweep himself away from this fight, but unfortunately ends up going down.
Yeah, it looked like he had already either used the E and it got interrupted by Tangyuan because he put himself in front of him, or yeah, it was gone. So LGD, not the greatest showing in terms of trying to escape from XQW in the mid lane in the 1v2, but still maintaining decent CS. Tangyuan.
Oh, we're just doing this. Okay.
Yeah, they're starting it up. I mean, they're on vision too.
I like this though. Like the bottom lane wave is even. They've brought over already Sasa on the top side. They're trying to cheat for this now. Okay.
Nice use of the spell shield by Shaoye. It just absorbs the Cyan ultimate, but YCX punted into the wall. Still tanky. Meanwhile,
oh no,
Milky
Milky
Way, 2-man lilting lullaby, but at what cost? He's gonna take a dirt nap himself. Tangyuan now trying to aid into the fight. Still super healthy, but has the snap back on the Soul Unbound. Flash from JiaQi and Niket forced out of them because the pressure from LGD is just too damn high.
I loved the positioning there, and I think the discipline coming in from LGD, taking the fight a little bit slower. RNG, we saw the flash from Milky Way. That must have been a misplay. I can't wait to see that in the replay. Oh, one more boomerang. He breaks the barrier. He lives. 5 grubs going over to LGD, and now they'll have some alone time here in the mid lane. All of these turrets have to be very careful. There's going to be a ton of gold. A minute and a half before these plates fall. I want to see how much LGD can exactly get.
Damn, now JiaQi has no summoner spells for the next fight. We got a quick picture-in-picture from the observers, just showing how close. Oh, that last auto attack from the minion wasn't the one that threatened the barrier, but the ricochet blade almost taking JiaQi's life on the back end. So far, CS scores have been relatively even. It's been a stark contrast in the mid lane for Tangyuan so far. But unfortunately for RNG, they haven't gotten a chance to leverage the advantage that Tangyuan has had on the Yone so far.
Also, this bot lane matchup is really difficult to kind of go through, so we get to take a look at this. I really, again, look at Shaoye with the spell shield, blocks the Cyan ultimate. I think YCX keeping Milky Way out of the pit, Niket not getting the stun against the wall, and then Milky Way here. I feel so bad to point this out, but Flash doesn't queue for whatever reason until the very end and then gets canceled here. I love that Sasa gets the ultimate for the unstoppable. It just completely breaks the line of play there for RNG and makes it even that much more difficult for them to end up contesting for these grubs that they end up losing.
Good by Nayo to just hover XQW as he's catching a big wave from Tangyuan, pushing it in. We've got Dragon spawning in the next minute and some change here, Alk. 5 grubs awarded to LGD after 2 back-to-back successful grub rotation fights. RNG just doing their due diligence to catch any of the sideways on the top side while XQW pushes it back in. I imagine that LGD, even though the gold lead is just about 1,000 for them, feel very comfortable going into the next fight, considering that they're all on spikes and they have the threat of being able to take turrets afterwards.
I think that the more important part is just that LGD's wave clear is less conditional. Like for Tangyuan, he has to kind of get into the minion wave. He clears it, but has to kind of get in melee range like we were saying. And for LGD, you have Sivir Azir. That's it. 5 grubs as well. Anytime they get alone time on these turrets should be fine. With like the dragon that you were pointing out, it is very easy for LGD to just sit in one of these side lanes, sit in bottom lane and mid lane, clear them out, push them forward, and decide, do we want to continue to hit turrets, or do we want to allow our jungle and support to walk through the bottom side river and start to place down wards, which you can already see here from YCX, getting vision, trying to deny that from his opponents, and getting priority here. They're willing to give up this top lane tier 1. How much of this is necessarily going to be worth it? Because Shaoye and XQW are still hitting on turrets this entire time.
I think for RNG, definitely makes sense to just get some gold injection for yourself, and LGD willing to take that gambit and say, we're still ahead in objectives. We're going to put ourselves further and further closer to that win condition. Oh, really nice public execution. The follow-up from YCX and Shaoye is just easy as pie, knowing that JiaQi had no summoner spells from the prior fight, and it's just an easy pick.
They even get his barrier here, so tough looks there. I'm pretty sure he didn't think that Mbessa ult was landing. So they'll trade the first turret, but I think as LGD, you're happy. You also claim the feats of strength with that kill. So they get the mid-tier 1. It looks like they're going to be pushing for bottom lane tier 2, but Tangyuan should be able to get there in time. And now after grabbing the dragon, they can, I think, continue this line of play going forward. Sasi just sniping him out from a lineup in the middle of his arcane shift, by the way, which completely finds them the kill here. So that is just unlucky timing there for Royal Never Give Up and their carries for this fight.
I didn't even see that he was in the middle of the animation, and the public execution still snagged him out of it. There was like a brief frame where it looked like he had successfully shifted, but then just got yoinked right on back. And now LGD, off the back of that, 2 dragons to their name. Not another dragon's going to be seen for about 4 minutes. Otacon spawning in 3. Maybe a fight here in the bottom river, but it's just Tangyuan using the power of the soul unbound to just fish for vision control, see where the rest of LGD members are at.
I think this is really fake here from LGD. I wish that instead they had decided to swap XQW. I think they're trying to make sure that he gets gold, so they're going to try and get him this bottom lane tier 1. But when you have a Herald, you have 5 grubs, and Niket's caught.
Wow, and like that, once again, pulverized flash from YCX, able to bypass the steadfast presence, and it sets up LGD for another injection of gold. Are they going to continue the chase here? Tangyuan, fate sealed after the Q3. Milkyway is there for the lilting lullaby if he wants to cast it. They finally take a nap. Milkyway and Tangyuan able to burn down Nio, and a teleport from Xiaoxu at least allows him to join the fray and prevent any LGD members from looking for more here. But Sasi, he arrives to the party. He definitely wants to fish for something on the Tangyuan so that they can equalize the kills here, but not going to happen.
We just invested so much for that play. I mean, RNG now, they get themselves that kill. You're totally fine with that. And then you're saying, okay, enemy top laner matched our TP, so at least we're matching summoners there. Enemy support no longer has flash, and YCX not even opting for the Hex Flash here. I think you're fine for that. And LGD, I think, lose a little bit of the plot here. They'll still be able to recall, go towards the top side of the map, and RNG are not quite in position yet to contest for this Herald, but I feel like that should have just been an easier line of play, and they didn't have to still give up that kill. So now we're going to be seeing this fight over this objective, and I think this is risky from RNG. You're missing some ultimates. Oh, Lilia doesn't have her Liling Lullaby. Like, I think we should just be giving this up if you're RNG and trying to find advantages elsewhere.
Yeah. Seems thankfully, at least for RNG, LGD don't quite believe in themselves to take the Rift Herald right away either, where there was a clear window where, as you called out, jungle mid, no ultimates on the side of RNG. LGD, even though Xin Zhao ultimate is currently down, feel like you have a lot more power in what you had available, but looks like Nio wanted to take some camps first, give himself that extra level lead, or at least ding level 11. Rift Herald is on a ward, so RNG know that it's being started up. Meanwhile, Sasa at least is just going to put pressure onto the bot lane. Xiaoxu was roaming back towards the top side of the map so that he can make this fight happen. They know that Sasa cannot join this fight. They're trying to force a 5v4. Tangyuan still trying to join from the top side of the map, not going to make it in time.
Niket's
and
dead.
Niket is just getting chunked out thanks to XQW had a really great position. Now he might be put to sleep. Lilting Lullaby lands on a 2. YCX could be the next target here. Xiaoxu smashes him with the axe, but here comes Tangyuan trying to change the odds here and turn the tides of the fight. Xiaoxu still facing the pain from Nayao getting chased down because everyone else from RNG had to flee, and LGD are going to take the fight away from RNG.
And they get to catch the mid wave incredibly high. Before this play, they were pushing in mid. They do this again here where they're able to clear. Sasa ended up getting another turret in bottom lane, so a lot of gold here for LGD to be able to spend after that fight. Completely fine that they ended up sacrificing their support. The Rift Herald stays alive, and I think for RNG, this game is going to continue to get tough. But some silver linings here. There are no flashes on particular carries when I look at XQW. So something that they can try to replicate, something that they can try to find in this game, as now they're staring down potentially a sole point coming in from LGD, and there's really no reason for them to ever be in an area around this river. I mean, you're going to continue to lose push in the mid lane. This is tough. RNG are dropping so much gold on the map right now.
Yeah. Seems like they're overgrouping. They're trying to play too much into the ends of LGD when they are down in gold because they are so afraid of just losing much more. Third Dragon easily goes over to the hands of Nayo. And now the rest of LGD, all they got to do is just walk this fight out. Wait for a better repositioning. Public execution right into the backline. RNG trying to stall this one out, but Tangyuan forced to flash away. And if he's the biggest carry, main a minute, Xiaoxu on the backline, being able to find a huge flank. Shaoye can clean up this fight though, and JiaQi's Ezreal is just not enough, even powered with that awesome flank from Xiaoxu. LGD just way too far ahead. Doesn't matter, they lose out on XQW's Azir, they still ace them.
Well, it's their pick of the litter. Do they decide they want the Otacon, or do they just want the Rift Herald? Personally, I think the Rift Herald is a much better option. You already have 5 grubs, but it seems like they're gonna want to play with some house money with these false lives. So LGD outright win a team fight. Just RNG looking incredibly split. Niket never really being able to play this Poppy as well as we would have wanted, and now it's going to be sole point here coming in for LGD.
This Otacon going down super rapidly. No chance for RNG to contest. And I think after this objective being secured for LGD, there's maybe one more fight that RNG could look at that could swing them back into the game. But at this point, it is looking dire here, Alk.
Man, they even get to hit this top lane tier 1, so more of that gold going over to XQW, who's the only player with a gold deficit versus their opponents. But LGD, I think, have played this game a lot better, a lot cleaner than their opponents. Even looking at this replay, I mean, look at what YCX is doing. He's stopping Xiaoxu from getting in. I thought with the Alistar being marked that this could have been their fight. This is just complete pandemonium from RNG. We're supposed to be waiting for milkyway to find an angle in these fights for JiaQi to pepper the opponents, and as good as Xiaoxu comes in on at the back of this play, I'm just watching on the other end Shaoye rip apart JiaQi. I'm watching Sasa on this Mbessa just carry this fight. This is just not clean and not good for RNG, who potentially are looking at losing the first game here in this series.
Yeah, it almost seems like RNG forgot what kind of AD carry they were playing against in this game. Sivir just benefiting when everyone is grouped up in the same area. Those ricochet blades, yeah, the Sivir isn't on, 3 items or 6 items like we memed about during the early stages of the game, but this is a well-accelerated Sivir. Already had the Yuntal blades, the Navori quick blades as well. Both of these items at this stage in the game, well ahead of the item curve. Shaoye is pumping on the Sivir.
Xiaoye has also just gotten a lot of free gold because, again, Sivir pushes waves, then she moves, and that's something we couldn't say for JiaQi. Now Niket looking, that's Nayo out.
Keeper's verdict punts out the jungler here. YCX doing everything he can to protect the rest of his backline. A shift in from XQW sends them all back with the Emperor's Divide as Nayo now rejoins the fight and marks Tangyuan. He can't even get into the fight. The one person that seemed like he had a fighting chance against LGD, but he is just completely soloed by the jungler of LGD, and I think this is game over.
There were only 2 people who ended up falling. It was Xiaoye and YCX. They run straight forward into the enemy base. They use some of their summoner spells, but I'm going to be honest, Raafaa, like you just said, this game is looking absolutely cooked for RNG. As we take a look at this replay, the engage coming in, Nayo gets punted out, and this was as good of a fight as it was going to get for the side of RNG. But you look at LGD, Xiaoye is just free firing. Him and XQW end up throwing hands and ultimates. Xiaoye actually flashes forward to kill the bottom lane pair of RNG. I loved what we got from that. The fact that that wasn't a good a fight for Royal Never Give Up means that this game is completely over for them, and now the false lives have fallen for LGD, so they'll maintain a 9,000 gold lead, and you can already see it. Sivir is starting up this Baron. LGD want to get out of this game and get themselves ready for game number 2.
6-0-6 on the Sivir Xiaoye. Even though the rest of the team has definitely done the work to set up this Sivir for success, Xiaoye has delivered when he needed to. The Baron secure for the side of LGD, and we're 30 seconds away from Soul Point spawning as YCX trying to lurch forward, looking for, just fishing for any cooldowns that he could burn off of a panic button.
RNG, they need to stay up here, honestly. Like, Milky Way, after that red buff, brother, you're walking on forward. You're walking into the river right now because we need to contest for this soul. And even if they have this soul, I just don't think it matters, right? Like, LGD, they still have the Baron for the next 2 minutes. It's very easy for them to push this wave. That's going to be another wave missing here for RNG, so they're going to start up this dragon. They need to be able to grab this, and then they need to win the fight afterwards if they want any chance here.
Nayo's got to be careful on this left flank. He's brought in Tangyuan, but he is forced out of the fight below 300 HP at the moment, or 30%. But the rest of the fight from LGD is going just fine. They find Niket. YCX sends it for an engage on a JiaQi. He's keeping his position, but a public execution from Sasi finds JiaQi in the backline. The shift away, the flash over the wall. He's running. He's just trying to survive against this Abessa, but the Sasi just does not give a damn. He's going to take out the Ezreal in one swell bloop, and Shaoye able to deal with any threats that RNG sends his way. The Mountain Soul was secured. Another ace picked up for LGD, and that's game 1 in the bag.
And that is it. That is going to be the teleports coming in. And Mark, it's been, you know, all things considered, a one-sided game here for LGD. They got themselves the soul. They got 5 grubs without very much contest coming in from Royal Never Give Up. And it's going to be the final push as they look to move up 1-0 in this series.
Something about Xiaoye Sivir is just putting a big smile on my face after witnessing it that game, Alk. RNG, one last stand, but I don't think it's going to be like IG versus JDG. LGD surely have this one locked up and wrapped. Game 1 goes to LGD.
A clean game, all things considered. And again, this mid-jungle is starting to hit. We got to see more of the greatest hits of LGD. Their mid-jungle starting to work together. This bottom lane doing excellent. I think that the draft just let them do basically whatever they wanted. And while RNG were on the beatdown, they had it to win the game a lot earlier. We just did not see those moments from Tangyuan. He had some individual moments in the lane, but outside of that, him and Milky were invisible in this first game.
Yeah, it was really disappointing because Tangyuan had like a solid 20-30 CS over XQW. He had forced him out multiple times in lane early while still maintaining a TP advantage. And the first time that he has a chance to leverage that, it's wasted. And the first grub rotation goes completely awry. And I feel like after that point, RNG just continues stumbling in terms of coordination and figuring out when to be decisive. And then by the time that someone decides to go for a play, no one else on RNG is really ready to follow up on the play. There's some mechanical flubs and execution errors from some of our individuals that we really expected to be, you guys got to be the carries. You guys are, you know, the rising stars. And we know that sometimes, you know, pressure can be on for, you know, younger players, but at the same time, you got to remember what you're playing for here in Group Nirvana.
Tough game, especially when we do have, you know, single round robin here in Group Nirvana. Just losing this series, not only game differential wise, but just as a series, is really tough because we're going into the back half of, their single round robin. And when I look at their next 3 opponents, LNG, OMG, EDG, those next 2 potentially could be the matchups that you're looking for the side of RNG, but losing to LGD in particular,
yeah,
that one is just yes, they are the expected favorites, I think, coming into today, but we wanted to see a little bit more from this team, and I think LGD is performing maybe a little bit above expectations now with Nayo in the roster.
Yeah, they definitely look a lot cleaner in terms of teamfight execution, kind of some resemblance to some of the magic that we briefly saw in their Split 1 performances. Maybe it will come to fruition and give them a chance if they are able to lock this series down. Obviously, we're getting ahead of ourselves. We're still, at least one more game to play. The confidence that we are given with off of the back of that first game performance, though, is where we're just really putting a investment in at this point looking forward. Now, things could obviously change. It is LPL. Anything is possible. But just looking at the way that LGD with Nayo in this roster is now seemingly more on the same page versus in previous iterations of the roster. If you're an LGD fan, hands are up. You are feeling good. You are hopeful right now.
You're hoping for a miracle right now. Your hands aren't up. Your hands are together. You're making a pray. You are praying to the LPL gods that someone is going to come down and save your season. Good stuff from LGD. I think that they played, again, their composition so well. Xiaoye in the mid lane, just being able to hold it down with the Sivir, consistently pushing waves into the Ezreal, making his life a living hell. And then XQW even. I think the solo laners really performed here in this matchup. Sasa being able to find those accesses in the backline with the public execution. They just controlled every single objective, and I think one part that I do have to call out is Niket. Niket was a really exciting prospect coming into this year. Finally wasn't underneath a player like Mako or Crisp over on TES, so kind of finally gets to have his spot in the LPL. We saw him a little bit on Rare Atom, but or Ultra Prime. It just hasn't looked as good. I think his engage supports has definitely been a lot better, but this Poppy game felt really out of sorts for him. We did not get much of a old style Niket game as we were used to.
I think on the one hand, I definitely, agree. It also seems very hard to make this champion work when you're trying to go in. I think the Poppy pick in the draft, when we look back at it, definitely makes sense as an answer to stop the Alistar, a lot of the mobility that RNG or LGD had on their side when they're diving in. But RNG were never the first ones to an objective most of the game. They're the ones trying to fight for entrance, and Poppy can only do so much if you don't hit the Keeper's Verdict on key targets, right? If you don't find the wall slam, your engage power is nowhere near that as powerful as something like an Alistar, right? And yeah, it seemed like it was a tough mountain to climb for Niket. Just trying to, I don't know if I need to do this much coping for the support of RNG. Just hoping.
He does not pay your salary, bro. It's fine.
I know.
You're not getting him signed. You're not getting him signed.
I'm questioning myself as I'm giving the defense of my life. I didn't realize I signed up to be his lawyer, but you know what? Just trying to sympathize with someone playing Poppy in this situation, I guess.
So coming into game 2, things to think about. I mean, we saw that the first couple in this first game, Gwen, Rumble, and Jace are banned. Now with Sion, I think you're kind of more free to kind of play these champions, especially with Mbessa gone as well. In terms of mid laners, there's no Yone with Sejuani. Nefiri is still open, and Ryze wasn't taken away, so that's probably going to be the next big combo that we see kind of paired up immediately. I wonder if we're going to have that split up between the two, and what is side select going to look like? I know it's been kind of a one-off question. We're always like, oh, we're defaulting to blue side, but WE has been a team that has gone to red side before. We're starting to see a little bit more of teams decide that we want to try to get counter pick. I think it is mostly our lower end teams, but I'm glad they're experimenting anyway.
Unknown. I'm just gonna say it straight up.
Nice. Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Thanks, man.
I did want to ask you, actually, are we on a new patch?
On 25.8.
Is it 25.8? Or
2508, 25.08.
Okay,
if you wanna get
0.08.
yeah.
Did Sivir get buffs on this new patch? I'm just curious.
I mean, we had seen Sivir beforehand. I think it's good matchup in Ezreal. It's like, as we saw. Yeah, Ezreal just really hates when a champion can not only poke him, but also clear the minion wave. I hear the MVP noise.
What is it?
I think it's JiaQi.
I mean,
oh, okay, sorry.
Shaoye.
It's not JiaQi.
Damn,
I thought of
out-flaming
AD carries.
JiaQi saying, damn, JiaQi
No.
played so...
Ah,
Nah.
man.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. I knew what you meant. 7-0-11. This guy in and out, just like the gas station, just making sure that he is pumping in the damage and just ripping through the enemy team. I know that I was curious if Sivir had received buffs just because the way that Shaoye played it and was able to navigate through these team fights. I think just the situation was super good for himself, not just for the lane matchup, but also just relatively looking at the rest of the composition that RNG had. Outside of Ezreal, everyone is melee. So everyone's going to be stacked on top of each other, and those ricocheted boomerang blades are going to get so much value.
Yeah. Congratulations to him, and yeah, I'm kind of just ready for game number 2, just because this might be our quickest series. I kind of wanted to see if this was going to be the more important one out of the 2 that we have tonight, but so far, RNG have not quite come to play here in game number 1.
Well, we'll see if they can level up their game going into the second one of the series, which we will be viewing with all of y'all right after this break.